good morning, and once again, welcome back to today's class. In the last class, we saw the man tried to make the fire again, but he was not able to do it because his hands, as well as the exposed parts of his body, totally turned to be numb. Let us proceed further. Before we begin, we will just go through the last day's paragraph without any explanation to get connected with today's class. So please open page number 47. Page number 47, last paragraph. Page number 47, the last paragraph. At last, when he could endure no more, he jerked his hands apart. The blazing matches fell sizzling into the snow, but the birch bark was alight. He began laying dry grasses and the tiniest twigs on the flame. He could not pick and choose, for he had to lift the fuel between the heels of his hands. Small pieces of rotten wood and green moss clung to the twigs, and he bit them off as well as he could with his teeth. He cherished the flame carefully and awkwardly. It meant life, and it must not perish. The withdrawal of blood from the surface of his body now made him begin to shiver, and he grew more awkward. A large piece of green moss fell squarely on the little fire. He tried to poke it out with his fingers, but the shivering flame made him poke too far, and he disrupted the nucleus of the little fire, the burning grass and tiny twigs separating and scattering. He tried to poke them together again, but in spite of the tenseness of the effort, for his shivering got away with him, and the twigs were hopelessly scattered. Each twig gushed a puff of smoke and went out. The fire provided had failed. As he looked apathetically about him, his eyes chanced on the dog sitting across the ruins of the fire from him in the snow, making restless hunching movements, slightly lifting one forefoot and then the other, shifting its weight back and forth on them with wishful eagerness. This is what we saw in the last class. The man, as he was not able to make the new fire, he looked at the dog and he found the animal is somewhat comfortable. That brought a clear idea in his mind. Let's see what the idea that struck to the man. The sight of the dog put a wild idea into his head. He remembered the tale of the man caught in the blizzard who killed a steer and crawled inside the carcass and so was saved. He would kill the dog and bury his hands in the warm body until the numbness went out of them. Then he could build another fire. He spoke to the dog, calling it to him, but in his voice was a strange note of fear that frightened the animal, who had never known the man to speak in such a way before. Something was the matter, and its suspicious nature sensed danger. It knew not what the danger was, but somewhere, somehow in its brain arose an apprehension of the man. It flattened its ears down at the sound of the man's voice, and its restless hunching movements and the lifting and shifting of its forefeet became more pronounced. But it would not come to the man. He got on his hands and knees and crawled towards the dog. This unusual posture again excited suspicion, and the animal sidled mincingly away. Let's see what happened here. The sight of the dog put a wild idea into his head. He was struck with a great idea, but the writer uses the word over here, a wild idea. The man was struck with a wild idea. Let's see what it is. He remembered the tale of the man caught in a blizzard. Blizzard over here means severe snowstorm is called blizzard. If the snowstorm is very severe, it is called blizzard. So he remembers something. Let's see what he remembers. He remembered the tale of a man. He remembers the story of a man who was caught in a blizzard, who killed a steer and crawled inside the carcass and so was saved. The man, what did he do? The man killed the steer. Steer means a kind of an ox. So the man saw a steer nearby him and he killed the steer and crawled inside the carcass, and after that he crawled inside the body of the steer and he saved his life. This idea struck the mind of the protagonist of the story. Once again he was almost desperate. He was totally unaware what he has to do at the present moment, because he cannot make another fire now. So he came to know it is impossible for him to make another fire, to build another fire. So that was the moment he sees the animal in its natural habitat. The animal is somewhat safe, though not perfectly safe, but it is somewhat safe. So the man got an idea. He remembered about a man, the tale of a man caught in a blizzard who killed the steer. The man found no other alternative. So therefore the man killed the steer and crawled inside the carcass, inside the dead body of the animal, and so was saved. And that was the way the man was saved. This story he remembered, and therefore let's see what he is planning to do. He would kill the dog and bury his hands in the warm body until the numbness went out of them. Now he decides almost a similar thing he would also do. He decided to kill the animal, that is the dog here. He would kill the dog and bury his hands, and he would be hiding his hands. That's the meaning of the word bury here. He hid his hands in the warm body until the numbness went out of them. The body of the animal certainly will be warm. So therefore he decides that he will be placing his body inside his hands inside the body of the animal till the numbness is lost from the hands. Once again his hands may regain its sensation. Now the hands have completely lost its sensation. Now he remembers, or he thinks, that when he kills the dog and he places his hands inside the body of the animal, once again the lost numbness of his hands will be regained. He will be getting back the sensation to all his fingers as well as the hands. This was the idea which was struck in the mind of the man. Then he could build another fire. He decides that once the hands get back once again the sensation, he would be able to, which means the numbness is lost from his fingers as well as to the hand, he will be able to build another fire. That is what was the wild idea which struck in the mind of the animal, in the mind of the man. So therefore let's see what he does. He spoke to the dog. He called the dog to his side. He spoke to the dog, calling it to him. So he signaled as well as called out the name of the dog closer to him. But in his voice was a strange note of fear that frightened the animal. But the animal sensed something wrong over there. As the man called the dog towards him, the animal understood that it had some kind of problem. The man was certainly fearful. Let's see once again the strange note of fear in his voice. In the voice of the man was a strange note of fear that frightened the animal, who had never known the man to speak in such a way before. Never before dog has ever seen the man behaving in this way, calling out its name in such a manner, because the man's voice was totally filled with the full of fear. Something was the matter. It sensed there is something wrong in it. Something was the matter, and its suspicious nature sensed danger. The dog was very, very suspicious, very, very doubtful, and it sensed a kind of danger. The suspicious nature of the animal sensed danger. It knew not what the danger is, but somewhere, somehow in its brain arose an apprehension of the man. The animal did not know what the danger is, but it was aware that the situation is a dangerous situation. It does not know what the real danger is, because it could not read out what was going on in the mind of the man, but at the same time it sensed out the danger. It knew not what the danger is, but somewhere, somehow in its brain arose an apprehension of the man. He got an idea about the man. It flattened its ears down. Normally when the dog is called, Never its ears are flattened. Flattened means made flat. It will be keenly observing the sound and it will be moving towards the man. That is what the general reactions of the dog when the master calls. But here what happened? The moment the man called him, it flattened its ears, a kind of apathy, a kind of disinterest. That is what the writer brings out the words with these words. It flattened its ears down at the sound of the man's voice, and its restless haunching movements, howling movement, curling movements, and the liftings and shiftings of its forefeet became more pronounced. It turned to be more sounded. We know the animal was going on, standing on one of the forefoot, and after that it balanced its body to that side, and after that it balanced its body to the next forefeet and balanced the body. So that was the way it was maintaining the balance of his body, as well as he was keeping it safe here, his legs, forefeet very, very safe from the from being nimbed. So therefore, let's see what happened. The hounding movements and the liftings and shiftings of its forefeet became more pronounced. More pronounced over here means it turned to be more and more clear sounded. But it would not come to the man. But at the same time, the animal was not ready to move towards the man. Man called out the name of the animal, the dog, and signaled the animal to come closer to him, but the animal sensed some kind of danger over there. It does not know what the real danger is, but one point is certain to the animal, that the animal at the present moment is at a dangerous situation. So therefore the animal did not move towards the man at all. Let's see what happened. He got on his hands and knees and crawled towards the dog. As the moment the man knew that the animal would not be approaching towards him, what did the man do? He got on his hands and knees. The man was not able to stand erect. He was not able to stand straight. So therefore, the man got on his hands and knees and crawled towards the dog. He was not able to walk. So therefore, he started crawling towards the dog. And this unusual posture again excited suspicion. The first time the animal sees the man walking with the help of his hands as well as the feet, that arose again another suspicion in the mind of the animal. The unusual posture again excited suspicion, and the animal sidled mincingly away. Sidled over here means it moved towards the sideway. Sideway movement is called sidles. It moved towards a side mincingly away in an excellent manner. As the man came closer to the animal, crawling towards the animal sided away very, very cleverly and moved out of the man. The man sat up in the snow for a moment and struggled for calmness. Then he pulled on his mittens by means of his teeth and got upon his feet. He glanced down at first in order to assure himself that he was really standing up, for the absence of sensation in his feet left him unrelated to the earth. His erect position in itself started to drive the webs of suspicion from the dog's mind, and when he spoke peremptorily with the sound of whip lashes in his voice, the dog rendered its customary allegiance and came to him. As it came within reaching distance, the man lost his control. His arms flashed out to the dog, and he experienced genuine surprise when he discovered that his hands could not clutch, that there was neither bend nor feeling in the fingers. He had forgotten for the moment that they were frozen and that they were freezing more and more. All this happened quickly, and before the animal could get away, he encircled its body with his arms. He sat down in the snow and in this fashion held the dog while it snarled and whined and struggled. The man sat up in the snow for a moment and struggled for calmness. Earlier we know that the man crawled towards the animal, and that created more suspicion in the mind of the animal. So therefore now the man changes somewhat. Let's see what the man tries here. The man sat up in the snow for a moment and struggled for calmness. The man knew that being totally fearful is not going to help him out at all. So therefore he tried to be very, very calm, struggled for the calmness. Then he pulled on his mittens by means of his teeth. With the help of his hand, he is not able to remove the gloves at all, the mitten at all. So now, then he pulled on his mittens by means of the teeth and got upon his feet, and he stood up. The man stood up now on this in the snow, and he glanced down at first in order to assure himself that he was really standing up. He was uncertain whether he was able to stand up as his feet lost its sensation. Let's see once again. He glanced down, he looked down at first in order to assure himself that he was really standing up, for the absence of sensation in his feet left him unrelated to the earth. Unrelated to the earth means unconnected to the earth. He was totally separated from the earth because of the nimbness of his feet. Therefore, he wanted to reassure that he is standing up. Though he knew in his brain that he is standing up, at the same time he was doubtful whether he is really standing up, and therefore he glanced down and made sure that he is really standing up. His erect position in itself started to drive the webs of suspicion from the dog's mind. So his erect position, the upright position, the standing position. Earlier in the last paragraph, we saw that the man was not standing himself up at all. He crawled towards the animal as the dog did not come to him. So now, and that created more suspicion in the mind of the animal. Now his standing position, his upright position, that is what the erect position over here, his erect position in itself started to drive the webs of suspicion, the network of suspicion. The feeling of suspicion which was going on in the mind of the animal, it started drive away. The suspicion went away slowly, it vanished from the mind of the animal the moment the animal saw the man standing erect. His erect position in itself started to drive the webs of suspicion from the dog's mind. And when he spoke peremptorily over here means in an appealing manner. The man spoke to the animal not in the cruel way now. Earlier, the whip lashes was a sound that he used to make use of when he called the animal, previously. Now, he started speaking to the animal peremptorily, very, very appealing manner. He changed his way of behavior with the animal, totally different from what he did earlier. Very peremptorily, very appealing manner, with the sound of the whip lashes of his voice. So that moved away the whip lashes sound, the cruel sound moved away from him, and he started calling the animal in a very, very appealing manner. And the dog rendered its customary allegiance and came to him. When the attitude of man has changed towards the animal, the dog also changed its attitude. Let's see what the dog does here. The dog offered its customary allegiance. That is what the nature of the animal is. It's always allegiance to men. So allegiance here means the loyalty. It rendered its customary. That is what the customary nature of the animal, allegiance, that is loyalty, and came to him. It started slowly moving towards the animal because the man has changed his attitude completely. The man used to call the animal with the whip lashes voice. Now that has changed, and very, very peremptorily the man called the animal in an appealing manner. Already the moment the man stood up, the suspicion slowly vanished from the mind of the animal, and now the man is becoming very friendly with the animal, and therefore the dog showed its customary loyalty and it came closer to the man. As it came within the reaching distance, the man lost his control. The man was having a kind of different idea in his mind. The moment the dog came closer to the man, that is, the writer speaks here, as it came within reaching distance, very close to the man, to a reaching distance, the man lost his control. He lost complete control of, and his arms flashed out of the dog. It moved out of the dog, and he experienced a genuine surprise when he discovered that his hands could not clutch. And that is the moment he realizes that he cannot clutch at all, he cannot seize the animal at all. The moment the animal reached closer to the man, he lost the complete control and he tried to catch hold of the animal in order to kill the animal. That was what which was going on, the wild idea which was going on in the mind of the man. And he tried to seize the animal, and that is the moment he realizes that his hands have totally lost its sensation and they are absolutely numb, because of which he is not in a position to clutch, which means seize or grab the animal at all. That there was neither bend nor feeling of the fingers. He did not feel the feeling of his fingers, as well as he was not able to bend his hands with the help of his elbows. He had forgotten for the moment that they were frozen and they were freezing more and more. He has really forgotten the fact that his fingers as well as the hands are totally frozen, and more they were freezing more and more. Again and again they are already, it is frozen, still they are freezing more and more. That realization the man did not have the moment man saw dog very close to him. All this happened quickly, and before the animal could get away, he encircled its body with his arms, and all this happens very, very quickly. As the animal came closer to the man, he placed his hands, he tried to grab, but at the same time he realizes that it was impossible, almost impossible for him to bend his hands as well as to clutch the animal. And all this happened instantly, all this happened quickly, and before the animal could get away, before the animal could move away from the man, he encircled its body with its arms. The man was successful in encircling the animal with the help of his arms. He sat down in the snow and in this fashion held the dog. He sat down in the snow holding the dog in the same way. He sat down in the snow and in this fashion, in the same manner as he encircled the animal, and in this fashion held the dog while it snarled. Snarled over here means it produced a kind of a grumbling sound. The animal produced a kind of anger and grumbling sound and whined. It started crying and struggled. The animal labored itself, struggled itself to escape. It fought to escape. The man, as it is already seen, as the animal came closer to the man encircled the animal with the help of his hand, and he remained in the same position, and the animal once again understood the danger in it. So therefore, though exactly it does not know what the danger is, but the animal is aware that there is some danger over there, and the man stood in the same way holding the animal with the help of encircled the animal with the help of his hand. And the animal, let's see the reaction of the animal. The dog, while it snarled, it started grumbling, producing a kind of grumbling sound, and whined. The animal started crying loudly and struggled. It fought somehow to get escaped from the man. But it was all he could do, hold its body encircled in his arms and sit there. He realized that he could not kill the dog. There was no way to do it. With his helpless hands, he could neither draw nor hold his sheath knife nor throttle the animal. He realized it, and it plunged wildly away with the tail between its legs and still snarling. It halted 40 feet away and surveyed him curiously with ears sharply pricked forward. The man looked down at his hands in order to locate them and found them hanging on the ends of his arms. It struck him as curious that one should have to use his eyes in order to find out where his hands were. He began thrusting his arms back and forth, beating the mittened hands against his sides. He did this for 5 minutes violently, and his heart pumped enough blood up to the surface to put the stop of his shivering. But no sensation was aroused in the hands. He had an impression that they hung like weights on the ends of the arms, but when he tried to run the impression down, he could not find it. But it was all he could do: hold its body encircled in the arms and sit there. Nothing else the man was able to do. The only thing that the man was able to do was encircling the body of the animal with the help of his arms and sit down there. Nothing else was possible for the man to do. He realized that he could not kill the dog. A realization comes to him. Even if he tries to kill the animal, it won't be possible from his side at all. He realized that he could not kill the dog. There was no way to do it. He realizes that it is impossible for him to kill the animal. There was no way to kill the animal. With his helpless hands, he could neither draw nor hold the sheath knife nor trod the animal. He realizes that when his hands are his hopeless hands, that is what the writer brings out here, the word the writer uses here, with his hopeless hands, the hands that have turned to be totally numb. With his hopeless hands, he could neither draw nor hold his sheath knife. He would not be in a position to take out his sheath knife, as well as he will not be able to hold them properly in his hands, nor throttle the animal, nor he will be able to control the animal. Neither he will be able to control the animal, nor he would be able to take out the knife with the help of his hopeless hand. That is the realization the man gets at the present moment. The idea that the man had was, as like the other man who had killed the stag and got escaped from the extreme cold weather, he would also be able to do the similar thing by killing the animal and placing his fingers as well as the hands inside the body of the animal till it regained its sensation. After that, he would be able to build another fire. That was the thought which was in the mind of the animal, the mind of the man. But now the man realizes that it is not possible at all, because he is neither able to control the animal. The animal, we already know that it started snarling, whining, as well as it struggled to escape. And now the man knows that for a longer period, for a long period of time, he will not be able to hold the animal in that way. Nor he would be able to take out the knife with his hands, which has turned to be totally numb. With those hands, he will not be able to take the knife out. So therefore, he knew that all his attempt to kill the animal is not going to be successful at all. He realized it, and he plunged wildly away with the tail between its legs and still snarling. And by this time, he realized it, and it plunged wildly away. And that was the moment the animal plunged wildly away. Plunged away means it dived, it moved away, it jumped away with its tail between its legs. That is what the dog's tail always remained between his legs, and still snarling till it was producing such a kind of grumbling sound. The animal moved away, jumped out of the control of the man, still snarling, and it halted 40 feet away, and the animal stopped 40 feet away. It did not stand, or it did not remain closer to the man now at all. The animal jumped from the control over the man, and after that it halted, it stopped 40 feet away. It stood at such a distance that the animal knew that the man will not be able to easily catch hold of him. It halted 40 feet away and surveyed him and observed the man very, very curiously. Each movement of the man was observed by the by the animal. The animal stood 40 feet away from the man, and the dog started observing, surveying very curiously. with eyes sharply pricked forward, with his ears sharply pricked forward. Keeping the ears pricking forward is observing, with keen observation. And the man looked down at his hands in order to locate them and found them hanging on the sides of his arms. Let's see what the man does now. The man looked down at his hands. He observed his hands in order to locate them. He did not have the feeling that the hands are there attached with the body. That sensation he doesn't have now at all. So therefore he started observing. The man looked down at his hands in order to locate them, in order to find them that they are attached with the body, and found them hanging on the ends of his arms. And he finds that hands certainly are at the ends of his arms. It struck him as curious that one should have to use his eyes in order to find out where his hands were. A person has to see in such kind of situation. Now the man realizes that he has to rely on his eyes. That is what the writer speaks here. It struck him, this idea struck him as curious that one should have to use his eyes in order to find out where his hands were. One has to make use of his eyes to find out where his hands are. He began thrashing his arms back and forth. He began to beat his arms very soundly, very strongly, back and forth, beating the mittened hands against his side. He started beating his hands, which are already mittened. Once again, he gloused the hands, and he again started beating the sides of his body. He did this for almost 5 minutes very violently, and his heart pumped enough blood up to the surface to put a stop to his shivering. As he repeatedly went on doing the same, beating the hands to the sides of his body, the heart started pumping the blood once again, and his heart pumped enough blood up to the surface to put a stop to his shivering. So the shivering of the body ceased then. As the heart started pumping the blood once again, it stopped. The shivering stopped, but no sensation was aroused in his hands. But he did not get any sensation to his hands at all. The only advantage that he had was, as he started beating his hands to the sides of his body, the heart started pumping blood faster. As a consequence, the shivering came to an end, but his hands did not regain the sensation at all. But no sensation was aroused in the hands. He had an impression that they hung like weights on the ends of his arms. This is what he felt. They are merely a weight that is attached to the ends of his arms. Let's see once again. He had an impression. This is what his feeling was. He had an impression that they hung like the weights. Hands are exactly like some weights which are placed on the ends of his arms. But when he tried to run the impression down, and that impression he wanted to remove from, the impression is, the feeling is, hands are nothing. They are a kind of weight which is attached to the arms, and he wanted to remove such kind of negative thought from his mind. Let's see once again. But when he tried to run the impression down, as he tried to get out of such kind of idea, such kind of negative thought, he could not find it. But it was impossible for him to remove such kind of ideas from his mind. A certain fear of death, dull and oppressive, came to him. This fear quickly became poignant as he realized that it was no longer a mere matter of freezing his fingers and toes, or of losing his hands and feet, but that it was a matter of life and death with the chances against him. This threw him into a panic, and he turned and ran up the creek bed along the old dim trail. The dog joined in behind and kept up with him. He ran blindly without intention, in fear such as he had never known in his life. Slowly, as he plowed and floundered through the snow, he began to see things again. The banks of the creek, the old timber jams, the leafless aspens, and the sky. The running made him feel better. He did not shiver. Maybe if he ran on, his feet would thaw out, and anyway, if he ran far enough, he would reach camp at the boys. Without doubt, he would lose some fingers and toes and some of his face, but the boys would take care of him and save the rest of him when he got there. And at the same time, there was another thought in his mind that said he would never get to the camp and the boys, that it was too many miles away, that the freezing had too great a start on him, and that he would soon be stiff and dead. This thought he kept in the background and refused to consider. Sometimes it pushed itself forward and demanded to be heard, but he thrust it back and strove to think of other things. A certain fear of death, dull and oppressive, came to him. A certain fear of death. The man turned to be very, very fearful. The man started thinking about the end of his life. A certain fear of death, which was dull and oppressive. Oppressive means unable to bear, difficult to bear, and it was very, very painful. He was not able to bear such kind of painful feeling at all, which came to him. This fear quickly became poignant. Poignant means it started penetrating inside, deep and deep inside his mind. This fear quickly became poignant as he realized that it was no longer a mere matter of freezing his fingers and toes or of losing his hand and feet, but that was a matter of life and death with the chances against him. Now he realizes that it is not some parts of his body is going to get lost. Now he realizes that it is the fight between life and death. That is what he realizes. Earlier, he thought that some part of his body may be lost. Permanently, its sensation must be lost. But now he realizes that it's a matter of life and death with the chances against him. This threw him to the panic, and it turned to be extremely panic, and he turned and ran up to the creek bed along the old dim trail, and he turned to be almost like a madman. He turned to be extremely panic. He did not know what he was doing, and he turned and ran up to the creek bed along the old dim trail, through the dim path. He started running without thinking anything at all, because the man has turned to be extremely panic, and he started running through the creek bed along the old dim trail. The dog joined in behind. The dog followed him behind and kept up with him. Keep up means move on. So the dog started moving behind the man. He ran blindly without intention. He had no intention at all. Without any thought, the man started running because he was very, very panic. So he ran blindly without intention, in fear such as he had never known in his life. Such a kind of fearful thought has never come to his mind at all. So he started therefore running without any intention, because the mind was very, very fearful, in fear such as he had never known in his life. Slowly as he plowed, as he moved and floundered. Floundered means attempted to move. As he moved, as well as he attempted to move through the snow, he began to see things again. He began to see certain things again. Let's see what are the things that he started thinking now. He began to see things again. So hyphen is placed there. What are the things that he sees once again? The banks of the creek. He sees the banks of the creek, the old timber jams, the growing trees over there in the timber areas, the timber jams, and the leafless aspens. Aspen is a kind of tree that grows over there in the cold region. So as he started running and he began to see the things, let's see what are the things that he sees. The banks of the creek, the old timber jams means the growing trees, and the leafless aspens, and the leafless aspen trees, and the sky. So, and he also saw the sky. The running made him feel better. though he was extremely panicked, and in that panic stricken situation he started running, but it brought out some kind of positive impact in the man. The running made him feel better. He did not shiver as he started running. His entire body earlier was shivering, and that shivering came to an end. He did not shiver. Maybe if he ran on, his feet would thaw out, and he feels that if he further runs on, if he ran on, his feet would thaw out. Maybe gradually the feet would melt out of the snow that is fixed on his feet, maybe gradually melt out if he continues to run. And anyway, if he ran far enough, he would reach camp and the boys. See, a kind of positive thought, an optimistic idea that comes to the mind of the man. He feels that if he continues running, the ice pieces that are already formed at his feet may be vanished, may be melt out. That is what one of the thoughts that comes to his mind. And the second thought is, if he continues running in the same way, he would be able to reach the camp with the boys. Without doubt, he would lose some fingers and toes and some of his face, but the boys would take care of him. Without doubt, undoubtedly, he feels that. Undoubtedly, he would lose some fingers and the toes. Certainly, he will be losing the toes as well as some of his fingers and some of his face. Certain part of his face would also be totally lost its sensation when he got there. But at the same time, once again, the boys would take care of him and save the rest of him. The rest of him over here means he feels that certainly some parts of his body, maybe the fingers, maybe the toes, maybe some parts of his face, that will be totally dead. But at the same time, when he continues running, he would be able to reach the camp together with the boys, and the boys will take care of him, though, but save the rest of him. They will save the rest of him, the rest of his body. The rest of his body means leaving out the toes, the fingers, and some parts of his face that is going to be totally permanently lost. The other parts of his body, they would be able to save. That is what the man feels now. See, a kind of optimistic thought that comes to the mind of the man. And at the same time, there was another thought in his mind that said he would never get to the camp and the boys, that it was too many miles away, and that the freezing had too great a start on him, and that he would soon be stiff and dead. At the same time, the pessimistic thought comes to him. We already saw the optimistic thought that if he is running, the snow which are formed on his feet may be slowly melted out, and he would be able to reach the camp together with the boys, and the boys will take care of him. Boys will provide him whatever is required for him, and they will save the rest of the part of his body, leaving out the toes, a few fingers, as well as some part of his face, which would certainly be, without any doubt, undoubtedly, they will be lost. But the rest of his body will be saved by the care given by his friends. That is what was the optimistic thought which was going on in his mind. Being a man, immediately the negative thought came to him. Let's see what the negative thought is. He feels that the camp is very far and he would not be able to reach over there together with his friends. That is what the negative thought. And another thing, the melting process of the ice have not started even now. He was running for some time, and that is what, once again, let us proceed to the original test. And that it was too many miles away, that the freezing had too great a start on him. It has not started at all. The starting process of melting is very far, which means immediately, that was his positive thought. One of his positive thoughts was, when he runs for a longer period of time continuously in this way, the ice which are formed on his feet may be slowly melting out. That was the positive thought. And the negative thought related to that is, the melting process has not started even now. So therefore, it is not going to take place at all. That is what one of the negative thoughts. And that he would soon be stiff and dead. And he feels that the camp is very far. He will not be able to reach there. And he will turn to be stiff and dead. This thought he kept in the background and refused to consider. This negative thought he tried to keep aside. He did not want to think about such kind of negativity at all. So let's see what the man feels over here. This thought, that is a negative thought, that he will never be reaching to the camp because the camp is very far, as well as the ice has not started melting out, and therefore there is no possibility that the formed ice will be melted completely out. This thought, this negative thought, he kept in the background and refused to consider. He tried not to consider such kind of thought. Sometimes it pushed itself forward and demanded to be heard. The more he tried to hide such kind of negative thought, but sometimes it pushed itself, it came forward and it demanded to be heard. It demanded, you will have to hear this also. So the negative thought overpowered the positive thought at certain points. Though he tried to be have only the positive thought, but sometimes it overpowered, the negative power overpowered the positive one, but he thrust it back. Still he pushed such kind of negative thoughts back and strove to think of other things. Strive to think means he tried hard, he tried his maximum to think about other things, rest of the things, that is the positive things he tried to think about. Students, let's stop for the day. I hope we will be able to complete this long lesson in the next period. And let me once again remind you, continue reading the lesson as well as finding out and solving the question answers that are given in your workbook. Once again, thank you and meet you in the next class.